Hot Sheet is here, another week, and this is the best time of year, really, for Baseball America. Obviously, deep in the thick of the college season, draft coming up. There's either prospects making debuts or people complaining about prospects that should be making debuts. Both great. Scotty Braun here, Carlos Collazo, and Jacob Rudner from Baseball America. We're going to hit the first move right away since we have a guest joining us in a little bit too, Brody Hopkins in the Rays system. So let's hit it. All right, Carlos, mock draft 4.0. I want to go right to the top. The Washington Nationals are a decent team, probably not a playoff contender, but building their way back up. Helps to have a number one overall pick. Where do you think they're going?
Yeah, you would think fourth time doing the mock draft of the year, we'd have some good idea of who the Nationals were taking, but we're about a month out, and I don't know that there's any more confidence in who's going to be the 1-1. Everyone that I ask this question feels like Ethan Holiday is the favorite. It seems like he's been the favorite for a few weeks now. He's the guy we still have tied to the Nationals at number one. Part of me thinks that Eli Willits, the other Oklahoma prep shortstop in this class, who we have as the third overall player in the class, part of me thinks that he's sneakily in the mix more than is being talked about. It wouldn't at all surprise me to see him be the first player selected. But Ethan Holiday gets so much buzz at the top of the board. He's got the best overall offensive upside in the class. He had a really strong year this spring. He was looking good defensively. And I also just think Ethan is probably the least likely player to slide in any real capacity on draft day. It really does feel like the Rockies at 4 is the lowest he could possibly get. It sounds like Colorado really likes Ethan Holiday, and if he's available, they're going to grab him. But otherwise, there are a lot of college arms that are getting some helium at the top. I'm not sure if it's all the way to number one, but we're still kind of trying to figure out who the Nationals prefer. I imagine there's a decent group of names in the mix still. The Nationals are not going to tip their hands, but for now, everyone is pointing to Ethan Holiday and kind of shrugging their shoulders.
Jacob, do you think that's going to be the case?
I could see it being the case, and we've talked about it a lot, like Carlos said. There are definitely some college arms that are in the race to some degree, I suppose. Cade Anderson is a guy who I'm sure we're going to talk about more here in a little bit, but is definitely starting to become the popular name if there's going to be a college arm go 1-1. We've heard a lot of intel that Jamie Arnold, who at one point was considered the top prospect, is a lot murkier at the top of the board. Not so sure how the Nationals feel about him. And then Liam Doyle, has made a name for himself with the amount of strikeouts he's been able to rack up. Unicorn fastball. He's left-handed, so he's an attractive draft candidate. Whether or not that means 1-1, not entirely sure. It is still super murky. But if it is going to be a college arm early, it's probably one of those three guys.
What's your take on how much a pitcher can jump, or really just any player can jump, over these next couple weeks, super regionals, Omaha, the whole deal, Jacob? And do you have anyone in particular that you're keeping an eye on where you're like, man, if they shine, if they show what I think they're capable of, they could really make a jump here?
Well, certainly you can make a huge impact on your draft stock in the postseason. These are the high pressure moments that teams want to see guys be able to perform in. Whether or not you can go out and face the best competition and get outs is critical, obviously. So teams are evaluating this. It does change guys' stock. I'll be really curious to see how the slew of Arkansas pitchers are able to do in Omaha. The other guy who I really am keeping an eye on is Cade Anderson. I mean, LSU is going to be there. Anthony Ianson is in that group as well. Which of those guys are able to really step up on the biggest stage of college baseball and show that they belong at the top of the draft? If Cade Anderson's going to go 1-1, I would imagine that that's going to need to come with some impressive performances in Omaha against the best teams. They face Arkansas to open everything up. That could be his game. And we might even see him face a guy like Zach Root, who is also early round potential. Gage Wood as well is somebody who is very impressive and has late helium. So there are definitely some big names that we're going to see in Omaha. How they perform on that stage could impact exactly where they go.
Yeah, I think the pitchers more than the hitters in the NCAA tournament in the postseason can really move the needle for their draft stock in a more meaningful way, because you just get such a great picture of what they can actually do. You don't need an extended series of ABs like you do with hitters to get a feel for the hit tool. And there are always players who enter this time of year with fewer innings, I should say, on their resume. Gage Wood, who you just mentioned, Jacob, I think is one of the more exciting helium players in this mock draft. We didn't have him in our previous mock draft. He's in the 20s now. He is a guy who missed most of March and a lot of April with a shoulder impingement earlier this year. And so he's still stacking innings, but he's come back and looked phenomenal. His last 2 outings against Creighton and Tennessee, it's 13 strikeouts, 2 walks. He's got one of the better fastballs in the class. It's a pitch that's averaged more than 96 miles per hour. He's getting a whiff rate near 40%. In past years, we've seen guys like Cade Horton, who went 7th overall to the Cubs in 2022, Ty Floyd, who went 38th overall to the Reds in 2023. These are pitchers who really dominated in the postseason, moved themselves up boards. I don't think that Gage Wood is quite at the Cade Horton level inside the top 10, but I do think he's getting real first-round buzz, and that's because even if the results in terms of like the ERA hasn't been anything spectacular this season, his pure stuff stacks up with a first round arm talent. He's got fastball metrics that teams covet, and he's looked pretty phenomenal here on the mound recently.
You know, one thing I'll add to that is I really enjoy hearing feedback from college coaches who are facing some of these guys throughout the season, just to hear what they think about some of the players who we're discussing, especially at the top of the draft. And Gage Wood has stood out for that fastball quality. I've talked to multiple SEC assistants who have faced Wood over the weekend. They have all said so far that is the best fastball that they faced in the SEC. And both of the assistants who I've heard that from have also faced Liam Doyle. So that's really loud feedback for somebody who's made a name late here and was coming off an injury. So impressive stuff, impressive feedback for a guy like Gage Wood.
Carlos, let me take you to the position player side. Who else do you have an eye on?
Yeah, I feel like at this time of year, the college hitters, you tend to just start hearing them associated higher up the board, and the high school hitters kind of fall back a little bit, whether that's recency bias or I think it's more to do with the fact that this is the time of year where GMs and really high-level decision makers are getting in the room and talking with their scouts and breaking down players. And those decision makers love the safety and the lack of projection that comes with these college players. 3 of the college hitters that I think are going to go in a pretty good spot are a lot of guys we're hearing moving higher and higher in these mock draft exercises. Ike Irish at Auburn, who's got a real chance to go inside the top 10. We've got him slotted 9 with the Reds. He might be the most well-rounded hitter in this class, a class that's notoriously light on well-rounded college hitters. Brendan Summerhill at Arizona, an outfielder who has had tremendous performance this year, might be the best pure hitter in terms of just an overall hit tool. Less power than a guy like Ike Irish, but he runs around the outfield well. He's got a really well-rounded tool set overall. He's a guy that I think is in the top 15 at this point. And then Merrick Houston at Wake Forest. We've talked about Merrick a decent bit throughout this process. He's not a player who's kind of come out of nowhere. I think he maybe has one of the safer profiles in this class overall. He's a no doubt shortstop, easy plus defender at the position. He slumped a little bit offensively in April and then had a really loud showing in the ACC tournament. And I think he's a guy who just put in some good performance down the stretch. And when you look at the overall profile, his overall track record, his history of making contact, it's just a really appealing profile that a lot of teams are going to feel pretty safe about. All 3 of these guys are players I would expect to go in the top 15 on draft day at this point.
Let's just talk depth here for a second, too, without getting into names specifically. Like we talked about that feedback piece, there are a lot of people in the industry right now, and this is from coaches to scouts to executives, who feel as though this draft has a lot of really good offensive depth outside of the first round. We've talked about the confusion and murkiness at the top of the order this year. That kind of exists even deeper throughout the first round. There are a lot of teams, however, that feel pretty good about the options available when you get to, say, the third round and beyond that. There's a lot of value this year, they feel, in this draft. So if you're looking at it and you're feeling, hey, this might not be the best top end draft, the depth is pretty solid, and that's especially the case offensively from the feedback I've heard so far.
Jacob, Carlos, great info. We'll be chatting every week pretty much on this show. So we'll catch you again soon. We're going to get ready for our guest, Brody Hopkins. So we'll be right back. This one's easy for us to talk about. I'm a huge fan of Hungry Root. They're delivering groceries that we want and groceries that we didn't know we want, but we want.
Oh yeah, they every box that I get from Hungry Root has a new snack in it that I'm like, oh, this looks interesting, and then I try it, and I'm like, oh, I might need some more of those. So they're great at not only getting the groceries you want, but they surprise you with tasty little treats that you didn't know you needed.
Agreed. Turkey jerky. There was like a chocolate pudding thing where I'm like, I'm not a big chocolate pudding fan, then I have it, and I'm like, this is awesome. So they can cater to your needs. You got gluten-free, or you're looking for a certain diet that you want to fulfill, or there are certain items that you love. They learn along with you. You let them know your preferences. They just nail it. Take advantage of the exclusive FT offer, please. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/FT. Use code FT. That's hungryroot.com/FT, code FT, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. All right, we're back, and Geoff Pontes and Jesús Cano from Baseball America now joining me as we welcome in our guest of the day, Brody Hopkins, coming to us from the Rays organization, pitching there in Double-A. Brody, great to have you on. How's everything going down in the minors right now?
Everything's good so far. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Brody, I think you have a really interesting story for those of us that have followed you, since back you were a two-way player at College of Charleston. You make that jump to Winthrop, you transfer, go, pretty much full-time pitcher that season. How do you feel sort of that transition went in terms of making the jump as a pitcher, getting up to speed full-time? You obviously had pitched a little bit in the Coastal Plains League. And second part of that, is there any part of like being a hitter and having faced D1 competition that you think, sort of gave you an advantage or just a different mindset when you were up there on the mound?
Yeah, well, when I transferred to Winthrop, the idea was to be a pitcher only, and then something happened in summer ball where like we needed an extra hitter, and I was like, all right, sure, I'll do it. And I ended up hitting a home run, and then Winthrop was like, do you still want to hit? All that kind of happened, but kind of the main focus was pitching when I was at Winthrop, and once I got there, Austin Hill, who was the pitching coach at the time, I say this in pretty much every interview, he's the reason I'm where I'm at now. And he really helped me and really showed me like what pitching was all about. And to answer your last question about like kind of an advantage, I would I wouldn't say it's really like an advantage because you still got to hit the ball, but having the mindset of being a hitter my whole life, I think has really helped me because it's like I can judge swings, I can judge like kind of what I think they're thinking in a way. But yeah, for the most part, I would say that's really the only thing.
Hey, yeah, Brody. I mean, just obviously college ball and pro ball are so different. What are some adjustments you had to make to kind of acclimate to the level of play that you're facing now?
Just kind of building a routine that's based on myself. So getting with the Rays and them kind of paving a really good routine for me to have, and just on the opposite end of it, it's like I'm not a college student anymore. I'm a professional, so I have to be one, act like one. So yeah, those are kind of two different things that you have to like kind of put into the picture.
Brody, I'll queue up a question from a fan watching live right now. Pint Size Analyze says, how does Brody feel his background as a plus athlete and good center fielder affected his ability to throw consistent strikes as a professional? Like, anything that you did in the past help you to what you're doing now, aside from the basics?
Um, I would say being an athlete helps me on the mound because I feel like it helps me move, helps me kind of because like my wind up and leg lift is kind of different in a way. I kind of coil my body and just throw, and I think that's from being like just an athlete in general. I would say like helping my velo, like throwing from the outfield and pro hopping and letting it go to home plate. I feel like that's helped me also in a way. But yeah, that would be kind of the two things.
Yeah, and obviously you were drafted by the Mariners, ended up getting traded to the Rays, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But I just kind of wanted to get your gist on things. The Rays have this, track record of developing a lot of under the radar pitching talent. Kind of want to get your take on how they've helped you develop as a pitcher now that you're here at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just been kind of focusing on just throwing strikes. Really, I mean, I think that's what has held me back in the past, and I think that the Rays have really like implemented into my mind that like just throwing the ball just down the middle and letting my pitches do what they do and move the way they move, and just trusting it, and just overall just pounding the middle of the strike zone.
Geoff, you're muted, bud.
Of course, it was a quick transition. Changing gears a little bit here. You were part of a fairly large trade that went down last year. That's always interesting to sort of hear from a player perspective, like what the mechanics were, how did you find out, and then sort of like what are the next few things that you have to do, being part of such a large trade.
Well, I found out it was the week after the All-Star break last year. We were on the road in San Jose, and I pitched on a Wednesday, and that Thursday we get to the field, normal day. Finish the game, shower, get our food. I'm head back to the hotel, and I get a call from my manager, Zach Vinci, for the Modesto Nuts, and he was like, "Hey, I need you to turn around. You've been traded. I need you to come back to the clubhouse. You and Aiden Smith were just traded to the Rays." And we didn't know who for. We didn't know what the whole thing was. But I get back to the field. I'm packing all my stuff up, and they're like, "Hey, you got to drive back to Modesto, pack all your stuff up from the apartment, Uber back, leave your car in Modesto, Uber back to San Jose, and fly out of San Jose." And then I went to Bowling Green, Kentucky the next day.
Wow, that's crazy. Were you surprised? I mean, obviously, especially when you're a prospect, it's not the same as in Major League Baseball. If there's a team that's not doing well and at the trade deadline you're hearing names pop up, guys are kind of prepared. On the prospect side, you generally don't hear, hey, this is a guy they're going to trade, because it has to do with what the other team is asking for. So what was the shock factor for you? And did it affect you much, or were you excited about it?
I would say yeah, I was excited about it, but I feel like I built really good relationships with the Mariners, like some of the like the pitching director, pitching coaches over there, and so I was kind of bummed because it was like I had such a small sample size with them. But no, I mean I felt like it was like a great opportunity. It felt like the Rays really wanted me because they were trading away a an all-star, so I was like. This could be a really, really huge opportunity for me. They're another really good farm system, a really good organization. So I felt like also with my brother being in pro ball, I kind of like got the whole business side of it. I've like learned a little bit about it. So it's like, it's at the end of the day, it's business, but at the end of the day, the Rays wanted me. So, I kind of just was really excited about it.
When comparing and contrasting the Mariners and the Rays, obviously two organizations where pitching development in particular is, been celebrated, I'd say, over the last, 5 to 6 years. Or, comparing and contrasting the two, what are sort of some points of emphasis that, might be similar between the two organizations, and what's a little bit different?
A lot of people have asked me this question, and it's like I think they're just really similar, honestly. Like they both, they're both homegrown, which obviously I'm not anymore because I got traded. But I love to see that they really take care of their pitchers, and they both teach just pounding the strike zone, 1-1s. Like you got to win them, or you're not going to be as successful. I mean, it's just how they basically tell us, and we either buy in or we don't. And I'm choosing to buy in.
Yeah, and obviously you're seeing so much success right now on the mound, but keep it real. At any point, do you ever have that itch where you're like, you know what, I really miss hitting, or kind of how do you balance those things?
Nah, hitting was fun, like when you're doing good, but I had more failures than I did success while hitting, so I'm kind of glad that I'm done. It was hard, and now like being in Double A and watching these pitchers throw, like, no, I'm okay. I'm fine just pitching.
Hey, Brody, on the personal side, couple quick questions. First off, what's your favorite thing to do besides baseball? What do you do on an off day to get away? Do you have anything cool or interesting, or even if it's something simple, how do you get away from the game for a minute?
Golf, just
Golf.
love golf. Yeah, that's the big one.
Do a lot of your teammates golf, or do you have to find other friends? Because it's kind of hit or miss for me sometimes with prospects, where you'll have some teams that have a ton of guys that golf, and then some where you don't.
Um, I would say on my team we've got about 10 guys that golf pretty much every Monday. Like every off day, we go out there and we go golf, whether it's a huge 2v2 tournament or there's two groups of four going out. But no, I would say it's pretty easy. Like, um, I usually golf with the same three, four, five guys that every Monday. And I would say that, yeah, we all like to go out there pretty much every off day that we can. Sometimes during the week on the road, who knows?
And I've got one more for you, and then I think Geoff has a final question. So you have a few tattoos. Is there any one that is most meaningful to you and a story behind it?
Yeah, my favorite tattoo is one of the first ones I got. It's this one on the side of my arm. It's it's my great uncle's this is what's on his tombstone. So like his date and then it says to know him what is to love him underneath. So it's like on his tombstone. I kind of just took it off, put it on my arm. He was he's my mom's uncle, and he was kind of the rock of our family, kind of made everybody come to family reunions. And he passed away in 2020 from cancer, and I'm named after him as well. So kind of a big part of my life that I just wanted to put on my arm.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great stuff right there. I'm gonna change gears a little bit, wrap it up in a baseball
Yeah.
question here. You've had a ton of success over your last like 5 or 6 starts. You know, pitching in the Southern League, which obviously isn't an easy place to pitch. You're facing a lot of good lineups, a lot of power hitters in that league right now. What have you done in terms of finding like that other gear, finding success, changing things in the pitch mix? You have a really deep arsenal. I think when I was looking this offseason, you were throwing 5 or 6 different shapes.
I would say, I mean, it's not like I went from last year to this year changing anything. It was more of kind of settling in. Like I just got to double A, kind of had a little bit of a rocky start, kind of got slapped in the mouth a little bit, but it was more of just kind of finding my groove, getting comfortable, just trusting everything, trusting my pitches, trusting the locations of them, and just trusting what my catcher would put down and just going from there.
Brody, this was great. Hope you enjoyed it. Really great getting to know you for us and obviously for the fans watching here. Good luck, rooting for you, and hopefully we'll chat again soon, all right?
Yeah, thank y'all guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You too. Brody Hopkins, Race System. We'll be right back. If you're one of those on-the-go people or you're skipping meals but you don't want to, there's got to be a quicker solution. We've got one for you. It's called Huel. I'm going to take a swig. Cheers to Huel. This is the Black Edition, plant-based as well. Good for me. But what do you like about it?
I like the nutrition of it, and the replacement meal is great for me. If someone always on the go, like, man, I can just grab one of these out of my fridge, lunch, breakfast, whatever it takes, whatever meal I'm not going to have time to eat. It fills me up, and it tastes great. You know why? Because it tastes like milkshake, ice cream, whatever you want to call it, whatever flavor you get is delicious.
35 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, 27 vitamins and minerals, low sugar. You can get yourself 15% off plus a free gift for new customers using the exclusive FT code FOUL, F-O-U-L, at Huel.com/FOUL. Please see our description for terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition. Bottled. Back. Big final sprint today, and I'm glad that Geoff's on for this very moment and hearing that the Boston Red Sox are calling up Roman Anthony. Christopher Smith saying that a source told him that is the case. Seeing some rumblings from some other writers as well. Big smile on Geoff's face. What do you have for us, man?
It's just hilarious that we're on air as this happens. It was like we're wrapping up the interview with Brody, one of my favorite pitching prospects in the game, and I'm like looking at my phone, like asking questions, like as Roman Anthony is getting called up. So it looks like this is probably going to be official. I heard Abreu is injured. I don't know. I mean, what else can we say at this point? We've been waiting for this to happen seemingly since before the season even started. Just continues to dominate in AAA, and I don't think that's hyperbole either. One of the best hitters at the level, regardless of age. There's a lot of former major leaguers at that level. 500-foot home run, just showing off the power, doing heroic type of stuff. So just talking to some of the folks within the organization over the last couple of weeks, is I think this has kind of been bubbling and boiling over. They think he's an impact player, and I tend to agree. I think this is a guy that's going to come up and, will be one of the few hitters over the last few years that doesn't have those initial struggles. We'll see. I may have to eat these words, but truthfully, I think the bat to ball skills, the power, the approach, just so outlier, can do a lot of things to the plate that most guys can't.
He's 21 years old, Geoff. And yes, people are excited, as they should be, for the top position player prospect, who also was leading minor league baseball in average exit velocity. So what do you think could hold him back, right? I think a lot of us are expecting him to have a lot of success early on. The on-base percentage that he's putting together down there is also pretty promising. I think the strikeout to walk numbers add up to someone who you would hope would be able to convert right into a major league ball player with a nice plate approach. But again, I'll cap this with what I started it with. He's 21 years old. He's going up to the show. Best pitchers in the world. Minor leagues to major league jump is as wide of a gap as maybe we've ever seen in terms of talent level. What could hold him back?
I think it's, ultimately probably going to be, quality of stuff that he hasn't seen before. I don't worry about the velocity. This is a guy that just murders fastballs. Like that's not a concern of mine. Could the ground ball rate be a little bit high because the angles aren't always perfect? Sure. But I think we see a lot of guys like this. James Wood is like that. Junior Caminero is like that. These guys with super high-end EVs tend to topspin some stuff more often than not, right? But they're also guys that hit the ball so hard sometimes when they mishit it, it turns into production. So I think the concern probably would be like quality breaking balls from left-handers and just different looks that he hasn't seen consistently, even at AAA. But I don't know. I tend to look at a player like this, and I think in the same way that Gunnar Henderson checked all the boxes, in the same way that Julio Rodriguez or Bobby Witt Jr. or these kind of guys, whether it's, just the eye test or the underlying data or the performance, they kind of check all of them. So I would be really shocked if he struggles, but if it happens, it's going to be because he has to make an adjustment just to certain areas that they're going to be pitching him. I've heard left on left breaking balls away, but that seems like such a very specific thing that everyone's going to have to be able to do, and not everyone's left-handed.
Yeah, right. That's not going to be the poison that's going to get him. Oh, those left-on-left breakers 24/7. But I do remember, I'm looking back to late April when the Red Sox, I don't remember who it was, but someone in the front office was talking about it, maybe Brian Abraham, and that they wanted to see him face more left-handed pitching. Makes sense for most prospects, especially those that are that young, and also that they did want to see him unleash even more of the pull power that he has. Geoff, you follow this team closely. They have a very specific way of developing position players right now that really worked for Christian Campbell for him to turn into a pretty highly rated prospect and a major leaguer. And of course, he's gone through his struggles over the past month, but somebody who I think has exceeded expectations so far if you told him a couple of years ago where he would be right now. Can you describe what that is, how that's working for some of the Red Sox players? Because I think Roman Anthony did go through some revamped swing situations as well, right?
Yeah, I think, there's bits and pieces with all these position players that are sort of coming through the pipeline over the last couple of years that have gone through sort of this bat speed training, hitting training that they've been doing. It's consistent at all levels. We've talked a little bit in the offseason. I wrote a little bit in the offseason of their use to technology, whether it's the traject machines, to really challenge these guys from the minute they step foot into sort of their major league training camps after being drafted or signing or coming stateside, all the way through at all these different levels. And, the off the field work is really intense and really specific and rigid and, focused. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're starting to see so many guys make a significant jump. And it's not just Roman Anthony. We've seen Marcelo Meyer, who is a very gifted prep hitter when he was drafted, somebody that, had a beautiful left-handed swing. Nobody questioned that he would hit. We've seen him add significant impact over the last couple of years. Franklin Arias is, depending on, which site you read or who you talk to, is one of the top prospects in baseball, at least probably a top 100 prospect consistently across the board. Another guy who's, grown by leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. And you look at, a guy like the Password, who's now a top 100 prospect for us, a guy who's really performing in AAA. And you can even look down to somebody like Blaze Jordan, who I think a lot of people wrote off, has had a tremendous season this year, walking more than he's striking out in AA, has made a really successful jump up to AAA, made the hot sheet actually for us this week in his first or second week in AAA. So I think overall, you look at all these guys and you look at what the team is doing, and they've just had a lot of success running out this program and getting the most out of their hitters.
Here's the other part of the equation. The Red Sox are firmly in fourth place in the American League East as they call up Roman Anthony. With the hype that he has been receiving, will he be expected to be a savior for a team that actually has been okay on offense? I mean, I think it's the top 5 offense in runs scored. So it's not like you're going to look at them and be like, man, the Sox, they can't put days together, consistent days together of putting up offense. There's Carlos Collazo, by the way. Power increases your margin for error. Nice when you can still hit a ball out of the park. Very true. I think that's the case for Jack Aglione as well, who got called up about a week ago by Kansas City. Do you think there's going to be a ton of pressure on him and the youngsters, right? The 3 remaining of the 4. One got traded, Kyle Teal, in the Garrett Crochet deal. Nailed that so far. He's a Cy Young contender for the Red Sox. The other 3 are now all up and could be playing every day, at least for now, and Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, and here comes Roman Anthony. Do you think that's going to be a lot on them to try and turn around Boston's season, even though offense isn't the problem? Defense is a huge problem, actually, and that's been an issue for Campbell for sure.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny because I think I saw a graphic from TJ Stats, does a great job on Twitter with all the stuff that he puts out. Their infield defense is really bad. Their outfield defense has actually been, I think, like exceptionally good, one of the better outfields in the league. So Roman Anthony kind of jumps into that. It doesn't solve the problem that they have in the infield. We'll see, if Meyer obviously can do that when he gets more consistent playing time. I think that's what's been kind of frustrating early on with him, is they kind of haven't given him the reins fully. And Campbell has been up and down at the plate. I think, we're starting to see him adjust a little bit more to the league adjusting to him. The defense, though, still leaves a little bit to be desired at times. The reactions, some of those things aren't great. So I think we're going to see a lot of these guys. I think ultimately this is probably the right play for the Red Sox, and we'll see, what other moves are made over the next 2 months. Because right now, this is not a team that's probably going to compete for a playoff spot, let alone a World Series, et cetera. So I think at this point, it's time to ride the kids, and there's even some more names that could potentially come up, whether it's, just Nixon Garcia, whether it's Blaze Jordan, some of the pitchers we've seen come up already, as well as some of the guys that are in the pipeline. It's kind of an exciting time if you're into the minor leagues for the Red Sox, because this could kind of be the true youth movement breaking point with Anthony coming up.
This is cool. This is really fun in a time period where suddenly some of the biggest names and some of the biggest power names, which usually stands out in our sport, are getting called up at the same time. Roman Anthony is next for Boston. That's it for us. Pretty packed show today. Jesús, Geoff, great to have you on. Jacob and Carlos from earlier, thank you. If you're joining us live right now and you missed our little chatter about the draft, go for it. Mock Draft 4.0 up right now if you're a Baseball America subscriber. If not, now's the time. BaseballAmerica.com. We'll see you next week on Hot Sheet. Happy Roman Anthony call-up day.